What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to 302 Birds Live on YouTube and the Philly Sports Pulse, the show that gives you all the news analysis that you need to know about, and we bring it straight to the heart of the city of Philadelphia. Welcome on in. I am joined by two absolute legends, Adam Den, all the way to my right, and host of the Kelly Green Room on YouTube, Friend Central Junior, excuse me, Jonah Casel, and product of the great play-by-play sports broadcasting workshop, I may add. Jonah, welcome to the pod, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I'm psyched. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it indeed. So first, let's get right into this. I think we all were shocked. I would think at the news the other night. Jeff Stoutland, the 13-year veteran for the Philadelphia Eagles, out. We heard that there was a little bit of tension between him and the Italians, the Nick Siriannis of the world. But yeah, that's gonna hurt. I really question where this team is going to go now in the offensive line department, especially with rumors that Lane Johnson is on his way out. Where do you guys kind of see this kind of progressing in terms of the draft and next season?
I'll let our guest go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I think this has a lot of implications about things that have nothing to do with Stoutland, because I'm happy for him. Like, good for him. Enjoy his retirement. I assume he's not going anywhere else. But like, this says a lot about Nick Sirianni, because Jeff Stoutland has been with this team far longer than Sirianni, 3 times as long as Sirianni. And for him to take away his duties as run game coordinator and to drive him out of the organization, that is not what I want to see. That is really not what I want to see. And I don't think this will determine too much about the caliber of the offensive line, because, like, we know Lane Johnson's great. We know Mailata is great. They're still going to be great without Stoutland. But the question is those new guys, because I don't know how the new run game coordinator, the new offensive line coach is going to be able to develop them. So I'm not worried about who we've got already on the O-line. I'm worried about who's coming through.
Yeah, absolutely, Jonah. I think the biggest question here, and we pointed to this as a surprise, I don't really think this was a surprise given the reports that came out of him being demoted as a run game coordinator. And we know the struggles of this Eagles run game over the second half of the season, especially before they went into this kind of stretch late in the season where they played the Raiders, the Commanders, and a group of really bad run defenses where they're able to be a little better over the second half. But it really comes down to, I think, the lack of diversity as far as run concepts for this Eagles offense was kind of pushed as a blame for their struggles in the run game. And I'm not sure I would go there, especially given the struggles of this offensive line, the injuries that occurred across this offensive line throughout the season. So in that sense, it seems Jeff Stoutland kind of comes out of this as a scapegoat, if we're just going off the reports that are coming out of Philadelphia right now. And I think that's a little bit sad and a little bit disappointing in that way. Now, given that, I think the addition of Ryan Mahaffey, who is the Packers tight ends coach, who is going to come in and be their new run game coordinator, I think there's some exciting things and some upside with that, especially with how Green Bay brings kind of these Shanahan-esque elements of the run game into how they, play. And so I think if you can schematically change and become just a different football team over the next year, I think, and a meaningfully better football team in running not just more out of center, but more meaningful motion at the line of scrimmage, I think is something that could be interesting and something Stoutland might have been against. I think that's going to be really interesting. But anytime you have someone this talented stepping out of your building, it is certainly painful, and especially with the Eagles potentially having to draft Lane Johnson's replacement in this year's draft. That's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I really sort of see this as the Eagles giving Jalen Hurts the reins, honestly. And I think that was sorely lacking last season. You didn't see a lot of RPOs. You didn't really see him get to use his legs much. Now, we'll see if, that is a successful strategy with potentially a weaker offensive line, because you know what they say, it all starts in the trenches. But I really think that with guys like Grizzard and Mannion, I think Jalen Hurts has the potential to go back to his regular self. And I think the addition of Grizzard from the Bucks, it is a very undervalued, underlooked aspect of this Eagles offense. I didn't really like when they brought in Mannion by himself. I have said it once. I've said it again. I was not and have not been impressed by the Green Bay offense for a while now. But I think you can make something work here with Josh Grizzard from the Tampa Bay Bucks for sure. And, even without Stout, I think there's a world where this passing game sort of opens up a little bit.
Well, I think you're spot on with Grizzard, because the Bucks passing offense was perfectly fine, especially on third down. They were excellent. They were able to get Ibuka in these great route trees, Godwin when he came back from injury. So I don't think Grizzard is fit to be an offensive coordinator, because we obviously saw the Bucks take a step back, but the passing is perfectly fine for him. I completely agree with you. I think he's a great hire.
Yeah, I think I've been hesitant with Grizzard when we're talking about the run game, given the struggles conceptually in comparison to what Liam Cohen did a year ago with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run game, and kind of the slip that comes with Grizzard coordinating that run game, and really, again, like lack of diversity in concepts. Their screen game declined dramatically because they weren't able to get their players in space as easily under Grizzard's kind of scheme. But I mean, it's been 2 years, and I think what I've pointed out time and time again is both Mannion and Grizzard are kind of babies to this, right? Mannion has been an OC for a year. Grizzard has been a legitimate factor in NFL offense for 2 years. He was behind Cohen in that Tampa Bay Bucks offense the year before. So I think, it's going to take time for them to grow, but at the same time, forcing out an experienced hand like Stoutland in order to kind of give them free reign is definitely something that can cause concern and can cause worry, especially given that a lot of kind of the tent poles of this Philadelphia Eagles organization are starting to crumble a little bit, right? You have Stoutland potentially out the door. You have Lane Johnson potentially out the door at the end of this season. And I mean, who knows about the health of Landon Dickerson? AJ Brown is another. I mean, he's a captain that could potentially be out of this building. A lot of the key pieces that when you think of the Philadelphia Eagles, you think of are starting to exit. And I think that on its own is worrisome.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Lane Johnson for a second. Do you guys think that with the loss of Jeff Stoutland, do you think it's a given that Lane Johnson exits? He is getting a little older, and this will be his second ever offensive line coach in the league, which is crazy. I don't know. If I were him, I don't know if I would want to deal with the repercussions that come with all that.
I mean, to go out and say at the beginning of the year, like, this is it, I'm done. That is one thing that could energize the Eagles. Like, let's win it a third time for Lane. But also that's something that puts a lot of pressure on the team because they now have to find the next offensive tackle to replace the best offensive tackle in the league immediately. So I think that's probably not the best thing to do. I think they have to go through this season assuming that Lane Johnson's going to play till his legs fall off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the assumption is that Lane Johnson will play in 2026, and I would roll with that assumption. But even given that the injuries that Lane Johnson has sustained over the past couple of years, there's a level of consistency that he has had at the position. But I mean, he's missed more games in the past 2-3 years than he had over the course of his entire career previously. So even if this isn't Lane Johnson's last year, I think you have to start thinking about the outcome and the future. We can't read his mind, but you can certainly prepare yourself. And so this is a draft in which there are a ton of good tackles, or not necessarily good tackles. I haven't watched film yet, but a ton of tackles being touted as good and, from expert evaluations. And I think, the first round would be a time to take a look at maybe one of these Utah guys or Caden Proctor at Alabama, or if you wanted to really take a shot and move up, Francis Maligoa out of Miami will be there at the top of this draft, very top. And so it's time to kind of start considering that if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, especially given the fact that it seems unlikely that they're going to make a change at guard. It seems like Tyler Steen and Landon Dickerson are going to be the two at that position. But one of the things that I really loved about Jeff Stoutland was his ability to give players inside-out versatility, right? He's a guy who helped Mekhi Becton, who was a ginormous right tackle, become a great right guard. He's a guy who helped Landon Dickerson, who was a career center in college, became a great left guard. And I don't know that I would necessarily trust, let's say I draft a tackle, maybe I would have trusted earlier in his career that, hey, if Landon Dickerson struggles, maybe I could play him at guard. Now I don't necessarily trust that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how things go. I hate to sort of keep the negativity train going here, but unfortunately, we got to talk about the 76ers absolute disaster class. The last 24, 48 hours. To me, you got to start with Jared McCain. Listen, I know that he was not hot
this
year.
That's so sad. Oh, dude, I'm sorry.
My last.
When did you buy
it? December of 2024.
Okay. I was gonna say the NBA has like the jersey insurance thing.
Yeah.
You can, like trade it.
But it's fine. He's my guy. I'll support him.
Well, see, that's it. He was when you bought that jersey, he was in the running for Rookie of the Year, and then he got hurt. And yes, I've gotten this comment a couple of times, but yes, he's gotten a little bit of minute restrictions with some of these guys like Barlow, Grimes, all this crap, and he hasn't really looked the same, since the injury. But my counter argument is this: listen, he has looked better and better as time has gone on, in my opinion, and it's kind of ridiculous to me that while yes, on paper you got a haul back, I won't lie that I won't lie about that. On paper, it looks like a haul, but there's potential for those first round picks that we got back to be worse than Jared McCain was. What is Morey doing?
I'm just so mad because Jared McCain is a player who, if he was drafted 16th overall for the 76ers and then wasn't good, did not show any promise, I'm fine with moving him for a first. That is, cut your losses. But he didn't have to cut his losses because he was good. Jared McCain is the Sixers' second best young star behind VJ Edgecombe. I don't know if you count Maxey in there. He's more than just a young star. But McCain, young guy, really good energy. And that helps. You need a locker room guy, especially on a team like the Sixers that have been kind of in the dumps recently. But what I'm saying is Jared McCain outperformed his draft stock. And then they trade him for a pick that cannot possibly, the Rockets are not going to have a top 16 pick in this draft. This pick cannot possibly be better than the pick that you drafted McCain with. So you're just selling low on a guy that could only prove his worth more. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, I am just as frustrated with the move as you guys are. It probably inevitably comes down to the Sixers cap constrictions, and I know that is something that absolutely no one wants to hear, but it is, the $5 million and the roster spot will allow them to be able to convert Dominic Barlow and Jabari Walker and slowly, bring that youth movement back. And I think there is a real desire, it sounds like, organizationally, to have Quentin Grimes here long term. And that is kind of the twofold that's going into this conversation. Now, given that, this is, a pretty horrible sell unless you truly have no belief that McCain is going to be able to recover physically from whatever he is dealing with right now, or maybe mentally, because it seemed like it was a little bit of both. The shot selection within the games that he did play kind of signaled mentally, and physically just the same burst off the dribble was starting to get back, but wasn't necessarily the same. So I think it's great on Oklahoma City to take a flyer. As far as the package, I don't love it, but you look at all the trades for young guards that are of similar value, I believe, in this league, like Rob Dillingham and Jaden Ivey, who also got traded today, and similar packages are being given. So it's not necessarily the worst in that respect, but it really hurts to see them kind of shed in this way when you could have just done an Andre Drummond deal for some cash and thrown a second-round pick or two in there and still been able to do the same thing. So I understand the promise of Quentin Grimes if you really believe in him, but I think he's shown, some ups and downs this season as well, maybe not to the same extent as McCain, but I would be a little questioning in making that long-term deal as well. So I think it's a questionable move to say the least.
Yeah, my initial concern, honestly, when I saw this move, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they don't just trade first round picks for no reason. So they believe that Jared McCain is going to turn into a star. And we saw this movie before with Isaiah Joe, Sixers legend. You'd think it's the same thing with the Phillies and the running it back crap. What is the definition of insanity again? It's the same sort of preface here,
Yeah, I would be hesitant to go there, Jesse, just because they did cut Isaiah Joe. And so at least you are receiving some kind of compensation. And there is a reality, given how the Sixers have developed young players over the last couple of generations, where it might have not been possible for Philadelphia to be able to turn around the development of Jared McCain in the same way that Oklahoma City is with their ecosystem and their history of doing so. I think my frustration with it as well is just him going into an incredibly crowded guard room. You look at what they have right now. If they re-sign Lou Dort this summer, it's going to be him, Dort, Wallace, Joe, and Shea, all on the same depth chart. And so you might not even see very much Jared McCain for a good while. And so, yeah, it's definitely a move that they had to buy low. They had to do this because he's has all this potential and he's a spectacular player, but it's not the perfect fit for really anyone involved.
I mean, Sam Presti's no fool. Like, if he wants a player, he's going to go get him. He's going to give what it takes to get him. And then he's going to figure out something for him. And I think that's what the OKC Thunder are really going to do with Jared McCain. And he might not play all the minutes, but he wasn't playing all the minutes with the Sixers. So I think the Thunder are just one of the best, if not the best run organization in the NBA. They turn the Sixers from a team that has great guard depth. Now the Sixers are a team that may be weak at backup point guard. So,
absolutely,
yeah. The hits just keep on coming because I really thought that they were, after they traded McCain, there has to be a corresponding move after this, right?
Where did you get this emoji, Jesse?
Listen.
It's a scary looking emoji.
Listen, Pixar, baby. I don't think we're sponsored by Pixar, but the stickers, man, they come in clutch. Dalton and the 302 crew, they will confirm. But I don't know. Listen, if it gets clicks, it gets clicks. Whatever.
That's true.
You have your ways. That's works for me.
Yeah. Listen. Well, I mean. Where was it? Yes. I really thought, to be completely honest with you guys, that there's no way after we traded Jared McCain, especially after what we, again, got on paper, we would use some assets that we had to improve the team with a incredibly weak, in my opinion, East. That 5th seed around there, there's a spot wide open, I feel like, for the taking, because when you have the Detroit Pistons, a Detroit team, as your number 1 seed, there's so many things wrong with that situation.
Detroit team's pretty good.
They're good, but it's
They're very good.
It's Detroit. Come on.
They're very good.
Listen. Well, listen.
Well, they might be saying it's Philly. Come on.
Yeah. I think they're saying the other way. They have quite the history in comparison to us. There's a couple rings to speak for.
Not in football.
Yeah. Not in football. But listen. Yeah, I thought they were gonna do something. I thought they were gonna use some assets that they had and go out, and I'm not saying go get a Giannis, right? Like, that would be ideal, but for some reason, even though Giannis apparently wants us to come here, there was no indication on their Morey side that we wanted him, which I hate every second of that, but that didn't seem to be a reality, but there was a world where we probably should have made a bigger move to cement our position in the East. But listen, they failed Joel, and this is my biggest issue. They failed Joel Embiid again. And it goes back years. And now, a lot of this is not Morey's fault, but my guy he can't catch a break. You have the Ben Simmons thing, the Tobias Harris thing, which, yeah, that's a problem. Giving him the max, ridiculous. Markel Fultz having the Gibbs, not Morey's fault, but still, letting Jimmy Butler leave, absolutely ridiculous. Al Horford, need I say more? Ducking the tax every single year, and James Harden absolutely screwing us over. It does not end for this guy, and he is having one of his better seasons of his career, which I think nobody expected. Everybody expected him to have this bum knee and play 20% of it, 25% or less of his games. And he's actually having a productive year. And what do? Absolutely nothing yet again. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, and for to get to the point where Joel Embiid is going out and saying, "Oh, don't duck the tax." That is the point when you know that it is too far. Get a grip, Josh Harris, Daryl Morey, because when an owner goes so far out of his way to trade a young player like Jared McCain, I'm still on Jared McCain, but to trade a young player like Jared McCain just for the purpose of ducking the tax, that is when there is a problem. And if he had ducked the tax by trading Andre Drummond, sure. I'm as big of an Adem Bona guy as anybody. I would want to see him get more time on the floor. But to trade a young player to just duck the tax and to not make another move to correspond with that. If the picks for McCain turned into Giannis, I'm totally fine with it. I'm forgetting Jared McCain ever existed. But they didn't. And now the Sixers are going to draft a late first-round pick for someone who will probably ride the bench more than Jared McCain. And they didn't do anything at the deadline in an East with no Tyrese Halliburton, no Jason Tatum, and no clear winner. And they have Joel Embiid playing at the best level he's been since his MVP season. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stand on the opposite side here. I, for years, have kind of said that, Joel Embiid's playoff history and his playoff injury history kind of speaks for itself. And I think the Philadelphia Sixers have come to a point as an organization, given the deal that they gave him and kind of where they're capped salary-wise, where they have an awareness of that as well. There is not a reality in my mind in which Joel Embiid is going to survive for 4 straight playoff rounds. And so I just don't think it's smart for this team to give away additional assets in order to kind of try to capitalize on something that really isn't possible. It'll be great if they make a run. I'd be thrilled. I do think the East is weaker than it usually is, but there are still some incredibly tough matchups for this team. They watched them play the Cavs in this regular season in which they were, pretty outmatched, especially as a defense in what Cleveland was able to do in the paint. And then against this New York Knicks team and the way they can offensive rebound and really attack this Sixers team showed in that home game. The Detroit Pistons, they lost to, on the road, granted, but Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren weren't playing. That team just shot the lights out and essentially ran them off the floor. So those are not things that I would take as necessarily separators, but I think the smart move here is for sure buying into the Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe future, staying young and continuing to develop that as you grow, because this is the most hope that this Philadelphia 76ers team has really had in forever for the future, simply because of the talent of those two players. Why would you continue to lock yourself in on a Joel Embiid and Paul George window that really has the chance of disappearing in just about a second? So I don't like the Jared McCain move. I don't like selling. That's my issue. Selling off assets at the deadline. But I have no problem staying put. And it should be emphasized as well that they're not necessarily done yet. They are going to convert Dominic Barlow onto a full-time, long-term deal, which is going to be huge for them. Jabari Walker has the potential to be converted into a long-time deal, and I would expect that to happen. But if it doesn't, they also would be able to get a buyout guy, a guy that they potentially, could have been a guy that they traded for. You think about names that we brought up previously, but now guys like Yusuf Nurkic could be a buyout guy. A Mike Conley, talked about backup point guard. That's a guy who could step in and be a stellar guy for the playoffs. Colin Sexton is another guy I would throw out there who has potential to be sitting on the market. Cam Thomas just got bought out by the Brooklyn Nets. That's a guy who I think we would have been pretty happy if we got to trade for, even with his defensive limitations. So there are certainly names out there, and it's not over yet.
I agree about Barlow. But Barlow is a must sign. But I disagree about the Embiid thing, because what else are they going to do? He's their superstar. He's on their team. I think you have to do anything you can to give him a shot at winning. He might not. He might not win. He probably won't. But I think with him on your team, he's a talent that you haven't seen. You haven't seen an MVP on this team since Iverson. And Joel Embiid is an MVP.
Yeah, my thing would just be you've given him his shot. essentially. I mean, that's what Paul George was. That's what $35 million of Paul George was. And we've seen time and time again that come postseason time, physically, it's not going to last with the way that defenses kind of embattle him on the interior and his body's inability to hold up. I love Joel Embiid. I think he is certainly an MVP candidate over the past couple of years, but this is the Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe window, and I think this organization is showing you that they view it as such as well. It does not really make sense to kind of screw over your future timeline and your future drafts, especially when you have that Clipper pick in the near future that could turn into another star to continue to build onto, to kind of force things in a year where nothing is guaranteed except the fact that it's very unlikely that Embiid is going to be able to hold up in that capacity.
Well, I mean, again, I counter to a lot of this because we've seen. Well, listen, I'm a VJ Max appreciator as much as the next guy. There have been games where either Tyrese Maxey or VJ Edgecombe are off. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of these games where especially Tyrese Maxey is off, and then this offense completely dies. And we saw the same thing with Joel Embiid. He had, I mean, we saw this. He had no help. He had absolutely no help for years. No backup center, no good point guard. Ben Simmons was his best guy. I mean, come on. That name will forever be that name will forever haunt the city of Philadelphia. James Harden, like, let's be freaking serious. It reminds me of the Joel Embiid days. You need star players to back up your star players. And Tyrese Maxey right now is a star player. VJ Edgecombe, as much as, yes, I love him. He's awesome. He's not there yet. I really don't think he's there yet. And in order to compete for a championship in the NBA, you need multiple stars. Multiple.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is just that this team isn't going to compete for a championship. I think that's the reality. I love that everybody's excited. I love that the city is excited. That was never the goal out of the season. The goal was to see development from Maxey, to see development from Edgecombe, and have them continue to grow towards a future in maybe a 2027, 2028, in which if Embiid is still at this level, if they can acquire a young piece with that Clipper pick and the Paul George contract can slowly move on from, then they can start to be competitive once again. And so the fact that they've been a pleasant surprise, and that's fantastic, I don't think should change things, especially given, I mean, we just spent all that time talking about how they could be competitive in the East. You want to talk about how they could be competitive in the broader NBA landscape? I mean, this team matching up with the Oklahoma City Thunder, we saw how that looks. We haven't seen them play the San Antonio Spurs yet, but I'm pretty sure I can tell you how that's going to go in a playoff series. The Denver Nuggets. It just, this is fun. This has been fantastic, but you continue to build on the promise that you've shown going into next year, I think. And I mean, we'll see what happens, what you're able to do with these assets. And I should also add that this gives them a lot of flexibility going into this summer too. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to sign or trade for some kind of name with that Paul George contract, this makes it easier to do so by not doing anything now. And I mean, forcing things for, I mean, let's talk about the names who are available, like Anthony Davis, I mean, there wasn't going to be a Giannis trade without Edgecombe, so that wasn't happening. There's just not a lot of names out there that would have made the difference in that way.
As much as I want to be a total optimist, I think you're partially right. Like I could go out here and say, no, the Sixers are going to win the championship and Maxey and Embiid are the best, but no, they're not. I mean, like it's tough to kind of say like, yeah, these guys that I've given 82 games to aren't going to win the championship. But I think you're right. But I think they have to try because Embiid, you don't get an Embiid every day. You that just doesn't happen. You have Embiid. You have a limited amount of time of Embiid. I think that's become abundantly clear. You have so little time left of Embiid. I think they have to try.
But I think my thing is, I think that time, you said a little bit of time with Embiid, right? I think they realize that time can end at any second. And, that's become apparent, especially, like I said, in these playoff series. I just can see it time and time again. Every time I think about Joel Embiid in the playoffs, I think of the face injury in that Knicks series. I think of him getting beaten and bludgeoned in that Brooklyn Nets series and having to play Boston and not being the same physically. I think about, how great he was in that Wizards series, and then against the Miami Heat, he's unable to turn it around given, what was it? I think it was the knee injury that time. Like, they become jumbled in my head at this point because there's so many. So, given the slim odds of it all, I'd rather build towards a future in which I do think in a couple years, Maxey, Edgecombe, Embiid, and whatever, probably your age, Jonah, who's sitting there, that could be something fun and special.
But do we think that Joel Embiid a few years from now is going to be what he was this year? I'm sorry. That feels delusional.
I have no reason to think, honestly, that he won't be, given what he has accomplished over the past year physically. And even if he's not, I still think by this point, Maxey and Edgecombe are the backcourt of the future and able to develop in a meaningful enough way that makes them contender. I think the biggest focus should be that the timeline is no longer built around Joel Embiid. I think that should be the primary emphasis, because what happened when the timeline was built around Joel Embiid? You ended up in this Paul George mess.
Fair enough.
I don't think the Paul George thing's on Embiid.
I don't necessarily think it's on Embiid. No, I completely agree. I'm just saying I think the desire to go all in, right, that becomes an issue.
Do you think that the Paul George thing kind of compelled them to trade Jared McCain,
No.
No?
I think the only thing that compelled them to trade Jared McCain was greed.
I think less necessarily greed. I think there's certainly a faith, it sounds, when you listen to reports organizationally, that there is a serious lack of confidence, and they were worried that he wasn't going to be able to recover from whatever he's dealing with right now within their organization. So I think there's definitely concern there. I don't think they would have necessarily traded him just to deduct the tax. And I also think they really like Quentin Grimes, as much as we, groan and moan sometimes about what he has been so far this season. I think there is a little bit of upside that they potentially see there. It is just incredibly frustrating because, he's another one of those guys. If we had this talk a week ago, I would have, in that same sentence, said, hey, I believe the Sixers should not make a move because I believe in a future of Maxey, Edgecombe, and McCain. So the fact that I can't say that now, I think speaks a lot to my feelings on this.
Yeah. Well said indeed. I just wonder now what their plan is with these picks. I really am concerned that they're going to do the same thing that they did with Jared McCain. It feels like they do this every year to duck the freaking tax. Is that just going to be the legacy of Daryl Morey?
Well, I'd be hesitant to call that Daryl Morey because that is a Josh Harris thing. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the owner not wanting. He's the one who has to pay the tax. He's the one instructing them to not have to pay it. And I mean, in some ways, given the current CBA, doing it specifically this year, like I kind of referenced with, kind of the flexibility it gives you on the buyout market and what it can do this summer is important, because if they had not done this, they would have been capped by the first apron, and that would have affected them to the point where they wouldn't have been able to sign any of these buyout guys. They wouldn't have been able to convert Barlow and Walker, and this summer they wouldn't have had the exception that they do have financially. So there are some advantages. However, it's just continuously frustrating that this is the theme over the last couple years, especially years like last year where there was no need.
I think to say that it's a theme is kind of even like hopeful, right? Because to say that it's a theme means that it's going to continue, and it means that the dude that they're going to draft with whatever pick the Rockets have is going to be a good player, good enough for us to get attached and then for them to trade him again. I don't see the guy that they draft being as good as Jared McCain. I just don't. I don't think. I think Jared McCain was a really good draft pick, and I don't know if they can get another really good draft pick. And also, the Thunder have the Sixers pick. Did Daryl Morey really think that they're going to finish higher than the Rockets? Because he could have just acquired the Sixers pick back.
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's stupid. I think you have to judge your own team as it is and not look through rose-colored glasses and say, yeah, we're going to finish higher than the Houston Rockets, who are one of the best teams in the West, when we are still in the pack of the East.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, I don't know. I wonder, where, shoot, I wonder where the draft picks go. I wonder, if this sort of does this lead to a Daryl Morey firing. That was that this was, I called for it no less than I think 10 times on my Instagram earlier today.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen.
No.
Nowhere in the near future. The reality is that organizationally, Daryl is kind of entrenched, and that the 76ers just drafted a really good guard. Now, the way I say this in a lot of things is that sometimes general managers walk into situations where I'll use this metaphor. I use this sometimes. You can walk into Acme, right? And sometimes the general manager has a choice between the Acme brand bagels and my fancy protein bagels. And the fancy protein bagels are 50% off. And he says, you know what? I'll pick the fancy protein bagels because they're cheaper than the Acme brand bagels. And everybody's like, yay, Adam, for picking the fancy protein bagels, even though it was a pretty easy decision, right? It was 50% off. That's the VJ Edgecombe pick, right? You were gifted him at 3rd overall, given how kind of the draft fell, how the Ace Bailey stuff ends up falling, and given the luxury of being able to do that. So I don't necessarily credit Daryl Morey for that, but I think he's garnered a lot of credit, organizationally for a move like that. And, is widely viewed around the league as a good general manager. Now, the ownership from the top, I don't think has that same respect across the entirety of the league. And there's good reason for that. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens over the next couple years and the moves that are made. I'm sure the Paul George move still has weight on what they are able to do, but we couldn't have expected Paul George to, dramatically decline in the way that he has, given the season that he had in Los Angeles the year prior. I don't think that was assumed by anybody. That move was actually kind of widely lauded when it happened. So I think from a Daryl Morey perspective, I think he's fine. And I would add, if anyone is gone before Daryl Morey, it's going to be Elton Brand, because a lot of the Sixers' mistakes prior to Daryl Morey, and the reason Daryl Morey's kind of brought in is because of Elton Brand.
I mean, on the Paul George thing, I never wanted Paul George. I hate the concept of a big three. That is just I am anti big three. So when they thought about signing another dude to a $40 million contract, I did not want that.
You're not a podcast P stan.
He's not my favorite. Although I'll root for him. He's
playing
he's
fantastic.
On my team, yeah,
no, playing fantastic before he got hurt.
Curious George, huh?
Yeah.
Now, there's three other names that come to mind with this. Obviously, I think you got to start with Jabari Walker, and the guys that are in 10-day contract situations. Where do you see the Barlow and Jabari Walker fitting in with this team going forward?
I think the same way they have all season, honestly. They've been crucial. Walker gives you some solid backup 4 minutes. Barlow gives you some flexibility, especially alongside Oubre. Just some physicality to match what Oubre brings on the defensive end, and some protection for Joel Embiid as well, given his limitations as a rim protector and as in his current state in which he's at times unable to lift his feet off of the ground. So it's it's certainly crucial to have them both, and I'm excited.
You're not a fan of Embiid's dunks every 5 games?
You know what? I'm incredibly happy that he gets to show flashes of it. I wish that we saw it on the other end a little more than on that end.
I don't know, man. I'm just happy he can move.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. One more, Dave, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. Quentin Grimes, holy smokes! You just got a ton of pressure in my mind put on you. He's been nice. I won't lie. He's been nice. But listen, those boneheaded once a game turnovers that we seem to see on a nightly basis, that bleep is going to be magnified to 15 now, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I watched Quentin Grimes. Unfortunately, I watched too much Quentin Grimes last year when he was the star down the stretch. I think he's a guy who just works better with the ball in his hands. He was scoring tons for the Sixers last year because he was their player who was supposed to score. And now that's just not him. And I don't think he's as valuable now as he was then. I would have preferred they move on from him then rather than make him the 4th option. Now he's even lower than the 4th option. And I mean, I didn't get to touch on Barlow, but I'll go back to him for just a second. I think he's awesome. I think they can't make the same thing that they did with Yabusele, which is they have this guy come out of nowhere and then they move on from him after a year. I think Barlow's got to be on this team.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I didn't even hit Yabusele. I mean, that's another boring mistake.
Yabu's a guy who could get bought out, though. That's a guy who we just talked about all the financial flexibility this gives you, right? I mean, they're talking about Yabu going to play in Israel right now. So I think Yabu is a guy who certainly could end up being available. And I'm completely in agreement with Quentin Grimes. I think, the thing that does take a little bit of pressure off of him, and I think one of the problems that he ran into this offseason is that there's not really a large market for Quentin Grimes is right now. He is a like you said, a guard who does need the ball in his hands a lot. He's not the most efficient scorer. He's, a solid scorer at all 3 levels, but doesn't necessarily stand out in any particular way. And he's a serious defensive liability. And so it's hard to necessarily find a niche for some of these guys now, and the wealth of talent in today's NBA. We just saw it with Jonathan Kuminga and kind of the struggle that the Golden State Warriors just went through, and dealing him or not dealing him and finding out his role in all these different ways before he was essentially salary dumped for a guy who has a, possibly career-ending illness. So it's, it'll be interesting to see what his true value is this offseason and what the Sixers look to actually pay him, because it seemed like there was a big difference this offseason between the two, and that difference did not really support Grimes given the interest that was on the market.
I mean, let me just say, Quentin Grimes is awesome for a team that has nothing to lose. And that is not the 2026 Philadelphia 76ers.
Yep.
That was the 2025 Philadelphia 76ers. But that is not the 2026 Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
Now, before we do end, I didn't exactly hit this with you guys, but the rest of the league was not quiet. Huh. Unlike the Sixers. Just off the top of your heads, right? Which teams and which moves do you guys sort of stood out the most?
Yeah.
Got anything?
I mean, I can go first.
Yeah.
The Washington Wizards look like a 2K team 4 years down the road in a franchise. They have Trae Young and Anthony Davis now. That has not sunk into me yet. I think it's starting to, but when I see them play together, which might not even be this season, I honestly, if I'm a Wizards fan, I'm rooting for them to shut both those guys down for the rest of the season. Get a great pick, work with Alex Sarr, and then you have a really solid foundation. But that is crazy to me. Why is Anthony Davis a Washington Wizard?
That's nuts. Adam, actually, you may have some perspective with that. You just you just joined. Actually, congratulations!
Thank
you just joined Fansided as a contributor about the Washington Wizards.
I did.
And not something I saw coming, but I love to see it.
I texted my dad right after the trade. I said my job just got 10 times more interesting.
Yeah,
and I am absolutely thrilled about it. It is, I mean, you can go read my thoughts on Wiz of Oz. You can also go read my Substack, Hungry Dog Sports Blog. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but to keep it brief before I go on my spiel, I mean, I think it is a move that could definitely haunt Washington long term, but there's only so much value that comes from holding on to some of these picks long term. And there's only one really actually meaningful pick that they gave up in that trade if you look into the nitty gritty of it all. So it's going to be a exciting era in Washington, that's for sure. Jesse, the move that stood out to me most this trade deadline, I'm going to be a little meta here, is the move that didn't get made. And that is any move by the Memphis Grizzlies, Sacramento Kings, or the New Orleans Pelicans, besides the Jaren Jackson trade. Memphis holds on to John Morant. New Orleans holds on to Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. The Sacramento Kings hold on to DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and their massive, massive salaries that continue to plague them on the cap make them basically almost a second apron team at this point. It is insane to me that these 2-3 rebuilding teams are, not prioritizing garnering picks as they look to move into their futures, but they are all run by consistently kind of horrid front offices, and I do not foresee this going well for any of them.
Yeah. Well,
tell us what you really think.
Yeah. No. All right. Yeah. Before we end things off, we always like to give the floor to our guests before we sign off. Jonah, where can the people find you, find your stuff, watch you, read your stuff, whatever? You got the floor, my friend.
All right, so all my broadcasting stuff I upload once probably a week. In the summer I'll do more because I got nothing to do. I'm in high school. I'm on at Jonah Casel Broadcasting. All run together. Casel, Casel. That's on Instagram. On Twitter at Jonah Casel, and then on YouTube I am the Kelly Green Room Podcast. I've done a couple interviews with some radio guys in Philly, so I've had a lot of fun doing that, and I'm looking forward to doing some more.
Hell yeah! All right,
happy to have you on, brother.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I love this.
Yeah, no, it was great having you on. Hey, if you ever want to come on, just let me know, and we can certainly make do. So
I'll make you a deal. When the Flyers make the playoffs, I'll come on.
Oh,
I'll be
boy.
back on in
Well,
35 years.
Shoot, we're never seeing you
I'll be
again.
back on in 35 years.
Oh my God, no! We're gonna be doing our show in the nursing home.
They did it. They did it.
Oh my God, yeah, no, I didn't. We didn't even get to talk about the fly.
What is there to talk about?
This has been such a bad Philadelphia sports week. I can't even. I mean, I think you guys both know when my birthday is. It's October. It's October 6th. I cannot remember a worse Philadelphia sports week since October 6th, which is not that long ago. It's ridiculous. I swear to God, we get this crap every 6 months.
It's like the stars align to just shine on Philly, and it's just not what you want.
It's disgusting. It always comes in threes. It's the Flyers. They're always up to some bull crap, like they have been with Comcast for the last decade. The Eagles, there's always some BS nowadays. The Phillies have Dave Dombrowski, and need I say more? Again, the Sixers are run by Josh Harris. Again, yet I say more. It is ridiculous.
You know what,
But
Jesse?
What do you got?
We got a chance for a 3-game win streak tonight, and I'm very excited. So take a little weight off your chest as we take down the King and potentially our last time facing him.
Well, I will say I'm very glad that we are starting to wind down this West Coast sort of trip.
Yeah, that's very true.
I cannot.
Good for my bedtime.
I cannot handle the 1 o'clock in the morning.
Nope.
When the Flyers go on their West Coast trip during Disney on Ice, I have never hated Mickey Mouse more.
Oh my God, that's classic. That's a great way to end things. All right, let's wrap things up. That's a great way to end it. Appreciate y'all for watching this edition of Philly Sports Pulse, where we give you news, insight, and analysis straight to the heart of the city of Philadelphia. There we go. I botched the intro, so there you go. Better outro. Just want to shout out our Newark, Delaware fan favorites, Nick's Pizza, El Diablo's, and of course TickPick. We gotta please our boys at TickPick.
I just got some tickets on TickPick.
Oh shoot!
I did. One of my favorite bands is coming to Philadelphia, and I got them on TickPick. Shout out Black Country New Road.
Okay.
We're locked in.
I'm assuming you got a pretty good deal.
I got a very good deal. Very good
deal.
There
we go.
TickPick comes in clutch.
It absolutely does. Yep. Nope. We absolutely love to see it. But yeah, that's it. That is it for us live on Through Two Birds. Please subscribe, comment, all the things. Go follow Jonah on his Jonah Broadcasting account. All that stuff. Appreciate y'all for watching. Have a good night, and fire Morey.